Welcome back to the podcast. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see I have a guest sitting next to me. I do not have another screen on the computer. That's what Ashley and I used to do. She would be in New York, I would be in Arizona. But no, my new co-host is sitting right next to me. So I want to introduce you guys to my husband, Casey.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be co-hosting with Liz. It's going to be hard to top Ashley. She was great on this show, and I want to give her a big thank you for her support and me taking her place, if you will. She's moved on to other ventures, but she's been super supportive the whole time. She gave us a little shout out on Instagram, which honestly made me a little nervous because she was talking me up so much, and I just hope that I'm able to help out the community just as much as she did. I know that her and Liz took a lot of pride in doing the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast, and obviously I was supportive of them, but excited to be co-hosting with Liz and helping everybody out as much as possible. This first episode, we're just going to share a little bit of our story and how we got to doing the podcast. When Ashley and Liz were trying to think of a title for it, I actually came up with the name of Paycheck to Daycheck. A little bit behind that, so I was in corporate America for 20 years. You know, it was a great career, but at the same time, it was just not as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. And Liz and I weren't able to enjoy that much time together because my schedule was very taxing. It was 21 days of 12 hours straight, and then I would get 7 days off. So a little bit about the name. It's not so much about like leaving a job per se. It was just the idea of a lot of people work hourly, you know, and their efforts one day are going to be rewarded the same as the next, regardless of, you know, how much work was being done. So for me specifically, you know, I would have very long days, but still making the same each day regardless. And so the idea behind Paycheck to Daycheck was really your daily efforts getting rewarded. You know, as much as you put into your day is as much you're going to get out of it. So hope that makes sense to everyone.
And more, you know, you worked your catastrophe job, and, you know, I could just see it taking a toll on Casey because you just weren't home as much and you were spending so much time on the road. And so that's kind of where we got to thinking, or we knew you didn't want to do that for the next 20 years. So how can we on the side build something up to where you could take a job that maybe wasn't as tolling, you know, on the time commitment and, you know, still be making money and still make it work. So that's pretty much where the Paycheck to Daycheck concept came. When Ashley and I were thinking of names, Casey's like, why don't you call it the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast? And I would put the name reselling in it because we were wanting to focus, Ashley and I, more on reselling. Where now that Casey and I took over the podcast, we're going to drop the name reselling because we just want it to be Paycheck to Daycheck podcast, which we've changed our YouTube and our Instagram handles. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to do Facebook as well to Paycheck to Daycheck instead of at P2D podcast, because P2D, there was another podcast that was similar and we were always pulling up in YouTube search. So I wanted to stick to just the full name of Paycheck to Daycheck. So that's one of the changes that is going to happen with the podcast, along with having a new co-host. And then also Ashley and I put out weekly episodes just with us. Casey and I want to do every other week, twice a month. We're going to put out episodes that we do on the topics that we choose. But also we don't want to just be talking about reselling. We want it to be more of, you know, other ways that you guys can make money, whether it's online, whether it's starting a business and, you know, just getting inspired by guests. So we want to try to bring more guest speakers. I know we got a lot of good feedback when Ashley and I had guests on, like Jen, who's Thrift the Travel, who talked about discontinued items, our friend Josh, who talked about selling sneakers. We had Chris Clear the Shelf, who came on to talk about online arbitrage with Amazon, just having other guests. That's going to be just a slight change. I hope you guys are still going to be excited.
Yeah, more entrepreneurs as well. We have several friends around the Arizona area that have their own business. For example, our friend Danny is a window cleaner. And again, going back to the Paycheck to Daycheck concept, you know, some days he might have two 2 houses to do windows on. Some days it's 4. But again, it's the more work you put in each day, the more reward you get out of it.
Well, hearing all those stories, like regardless, if you guys want to do reselling, you might find something so interesting that you end up doing that yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to give to the Daycheckers community, you guys that are the loyal listeners you are. But also, it kind of reminds me of when Casey was working as a catastrophe adjuster and he was going around. I mean, you would listen to podcasts and YouTube videos, and he had to drive everywhere. We would be we were in Tempe, Arizona at the time, and they would tell him on Friday, you have to be in Dallas, Texas, and you have to drive. And luckily, he had a company car, and we didn't have to ever pay for gas, which was nice. But he would be the entire time sending me all these videos or all these podcast episodes, like, I think we should do this, we should try this. And the first one was?
Reselling books, I believe, is the first idea that I had.
Reezy Resells.
Yeah, Reezy Resells was somebody that I found online, which we've got to meet in person in the last few years, and he's a great guy. He's very helpful to his followers and very inspirational. He was even interviewed by Gary Vee in person, which was really cool to see. But yeah, with driving, I was in my car for upwards of 12 hours every day. So I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts and to listen to YouTube videos. It was very inspiring, coming from a 20-year corporate career where I was just doing the same thing day in and day out, and I was just getting very burnt out. And like Liz said, I knew I didn't want to do it for another 20 plus years. So it was finding something else to do. And the benefit of being able to be in the car and listen to podcasts and YouTube, a lot of people don't have that luxury. You're working a full-time job or you're raising a family. So you might only have an hour or two a night to kind of educate yourself, per se. And like Liz said, I would, probably every 3 hours be sending her an hour episode to listen to. Like, oh, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. And, she was at the time, back home.
I was still teaching.
Yeah, still teaching full time. So she wasn't able to come home and listen to 4 and 5 hours worth of podcasts. That just wasn't realistic. But at the same time, I was just getting more and more excited about the opportunity. At the time, this was probably 2016 that I started sending her a lot of the videos and podcasts to listen to. And the main goal for us was to figure out how Liz could make an income on the road and we could be together. 21 days apart was not fun at all. I was living in a hotel by myself. It was very lonely. And, I just missed Liz, obviously. So
our dogs.
Yeah, and our dogs. Yeah, they're a big part of our lives, still are. But so I found Reezy Resells, I guess, and that was the first kind of realistic thing that in my head that Liz could do on the road, which his big platform back then was selling books on Amazon, which of course is how Amazon started. And there's still a lot of booksellers out there that do it full time. And the concept of that was essentially scanning books, whether it's at a thrift store or garage sales or library sales, wherever you can find books, essentially. But there were apps that you could download on your phone and scan a book, and it would basically give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a red light, green light, however you wanted to set it up, on whether it made sense to purchase the book, pack it in a box, and send it into Amazon, and then let them take over all the work for you. My mom actually had started eBay back in the mid to late 90s, right when it first started.
They know about Bolo Brenda.
Oh, yeah, Bolo Brenda. But she worked in the post office and started to see people bringing in packages consistently with eBay. And so then she started reselling on eBay. She regrets not buying their stock right when it came out and, investing heavily in that. But, that happens often with stocks. It's, I wish I would have. But either way, so I was introduced to eBay at a very young age. I was in my teens. And I actually started selling on eBay myself. There was a warehouse for down comforters that were within an hour of our house, and we could go and get Calvin Klein down comforters for like $30 to $50 and then put them on eBay and they would sell for 200 plus. It was back when down comforters were very popular. I'm not sure if they still are. But yeah, we would load up the car, bring them home, and do the whole eBay thing. So I did start that very early. So reselling was on my mind when thinking of something that Liz could do on the road.
Which is what I did do out of the house when I had left teaching. But we also knew that really limited us if, we were in a hotel room, because I did start to travel with Casey a little bit since I wasn't teaching. And I think that was during the summer, or maybe it was even when I left. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. But I remember going to thrift stores in the area. I remember specifically Denver, Colorado. And I went out and I got a bunch of books, and I went to like Ross at the time. We were doing retail arbitrage on top of that, because once you got into books, then you learned about retail arbitrage and then online arbitrage and wholesale and private label and all that stuff. But I remember bringing in a bunch of books. I remember going and getting a cart from the front desk, putting all these books on it, all these like shipping supplies too, because I needed that. And I went up to the room and I created a shipping plan on Amazon, and I boxed it all up and brought it to the UPS store and shipped it in. And that was kind of, I feel like, our aha moment with Amazon.
Yeah, which, again, going back to Reezy Resells, I didn't really understand Amazon at the time, and he did a good job of basically painting the picture of how you can ship items to them, and that's, obviously they have huge warehouses and have built a multi-billion-dollar company at this point, but I didn't realize that they were getting products from third-party sellers like ourselves and then turning around and selling them. I just assumed they were like a big Walmart. They bought all the items and then they sold them to the public. So yeah, when I realized that, it's actually third-party sellers that are setting up accounts and then shipping items into Amazon, like Liz said, that was an aha moment for us, because living out of a hotel, it's not realistic to run an eBay business where you're storing products, so that really wasn't on our radar of things to do. When I realized what Amazon was and how it worked, it really was a game changer for us, as far as, okay, this is something we can actually do, is go out, find items that were inexpensive or a good deal, and then send them into Amazon and let them do the pick, pack, and shipping, which I know some of you listeners are full-time like retail arbitrage sellers, which is still a great business model. Like anything though, it has become a little saturated. Obviously the topic's been heavy for the last, almost decade now at this point, where there's a lot of information out there for people that wasn't before. And there's a lot of people that, like myself, I wasn't necessarily unhappy with my job. I like my coworkers and it was a good career. I just experienced burnout, which a lot of people do after 4 years or so of 12-hour plus days, 21 days in a row. I just got burnt out of it. And admittedly, there's been times of getting burnout in the last 5 or 6 years of us doing full-time reselling. We've had ups and downs like a lot of people do. It hasn't just been a gravy train the whole time. One thing that has worked for us, which I believe Liz has talked about in the past quite a bit, is private label selling. And once we found that, in addition to the retail arbitrage, again, that was another aha moment and game changer in our reselling journey. That I learned from a guy named Kevin David, which some of you guys may have heard of. He was a big inspiration to us as well, even though he sort of has a bad reputation. A lot of the first, I guess, private label influencers, if you will.
They created courses.
Yeah, they created courses, which at the time, we actually paid into his course. It was $997, like a lot of them are. They tell you it's a $5,000 value, slash everything off, and you're getting this great value for $997. But for us, it made sense. We were able to afford it at the time without, much of a problem. And I had zero clue on contacting suppliers directly, importing products, freight forwarders. What else is there?
Well, dealing with pay-per-click advertising on Amazon, which, that's another thing that I didn't really touch on a lot when I was doing the podcast with Ashley. It was more reselling, more kind of eBay Poshmark focused, but that's one thing I do want to share with you guys as our story and maybe, inspire you guys to maybe do private label or create a brand, or, maybe there are some of you out there that are kind of already thinking about that or in the process of that. I feel like there was somebody in the Facebook group that said that they were going to be designing their product and reaching out to suppliers. So, and if it's you, reach out to us and let us know if there's any specific topics that you want us to cover. But going back to what Casey was saying with Kevin David and finding that course, that was also at the time where we decided to sell everything, our 5-bedroom house in Tempe. We hit the road full time in at first a 30-foot travel trailer with our 2 cats and 2 dogs. And then after 4 months, we sold our travel trailer and upgraded to a 5th wheel to live more comfortably. But that was what I was doing on the road. Casey was out, he's working his 12-hour days plus, in random cities, but we'd be there for 3 weeks at a time. Sometimes you would extend to 5 weeks. But that was what I was doing. That was my job, following that course, trying to figure out, well, actually, no, we started private label while we were still in Tempe, because I remember my very first order was in the Tempe house, and I took a picture of it.
Yep.
Back up, we were starting that process before we full-time RV'd.
Yep.
So by the time we left, we were already shipping our stuff into Amazon. So we would get orders of our private label product sent to us, and then we would ship it directly into Amazon, or just from the supplier, send it directly into. So on the road, Amazon just made sense for us because we didn't have to hold the product. We did all FBA. And then through that course of Kevin David's, we got to go into his private Facebook group. It was so fancy, because we paid the $997. And looking back, it's like, what a great marketer he was. He was really a really good marketer. Yeah. But he also, in the groups, he started these meetups. Like, he wanted to bring other entrepreneurs and other like-minded people together, which we ironically put together his very first meetup in Denver, Colorado. And there were maybe 8 or 10 people there.
Yeah, I happened to be traveling to Denver for work. We had been in touch with Kevin quite a bit. You had direct access to him if you bought the course. And I was really surprised as how many people were in his group. I mean, he ended up getting, over thousands probably.
Oh, he had his group. Definitely within the first couple weeks, I guarantee he made over $1 million. Yeah. There's no way he didn't.
Yeah, he ended up making several million off the course alone. But he did Shopify, Facebook ads. He had several different courses. Going back to, he was a great marketer, but at the same time, he was also very helpful and genuine. Mm-hmm. As Liz was saying, so we were traveling to Denver, and I reached out and said, hey, why don't we do a meetup? We're going to be there. And I think he was living in Denver at the time. Mm-hmm. So that's what prompted me to reach out to him. And yeah, so there was a handful of other people in Denver that were part of the group. And so we all met at a rooftop bar downtown. And that was, not only inspirational because we got to meet other people that were like-minded, but it really gave us reassurance that this is a real thing and can be a real business.
And it wasn't a scam. It wasn't like something we were going to get taken advantage of, or he just wanted our money and we took the course and that's it. Like, we actually were applying, and we were one of his success stories, and we still are. Yeah,
I mean, for Liz and I, our first order was around $8,000 to $9,000 total for the product and shipping, out the door. But we met our supplier through Alibaba.com, and I was up late nights because of the time difference between here and China at the time. I'd be online with them from midnight to sometimes 3 a.m, just trying to build that relationship and, get comfortable with sending money, wiring money directly to, somebody that we had never met. So over time, we got that comfort level up. We had gotten quotes on several different products. We were using software called Jungle Scout, and then also Viral Launch, which we got to meet the owner of that in one of the meetups, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, so we sent out, $8 or $9 grand with the hopes of trying to recover that within the first 90 days. We were hoping in 1 quarter we were going to be able to recoup our money and start making money. And the first month we did like $16,000 in sales. At the time, our margins were over 40%. So we were like, wow, this is really working. So let's plan on doing another order, which we'll go over a little bit more private label in another episode, just to kind of give more details on how it works and what to expect. Again, part of what we want to do with this channel is have Liz and I discuss certain topics, with the help of you guys, the listeners. If there's stuff that you want to learn about, if we're knowledgeable on the subject matter, we'll try to help you as much as possible. But also we'd like to do quite a few interviews. I'm a big fan of interviews during podcasts. It kind of helped keep me, I guess, more interested. Not to say that, listening to just Liz and I wouldn't keep you interested. We hope we do. But at the same time, it's always good to get other people's perspectives, fresh perspectives, and listen to their journey and their advice and their, questions that we can ask them to help you guys out.
Their mistakes. But yeah, when we, after the Denver meetup with Kevin David, then he started having a bunch of other meetups, and he called them NinjaCon. And the first one we went to was Puerto Vallarta. It was conference style, so it's kind of like if you guys follow like Boss Reseller Mix, that's going to be in Vegas next month. So it's like a reseller event conference. But that's what Kevin David was doing with private label and just selling on Amazon and everything.
Yeah, just e-commerce in general. I mean, he had guests.
Well, the next one was the San Diego one. That was the one that he had all the guests.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was in San Diego, and who all was there?
One of the biggest YouTubers, I guess, that was there was Graham Stephan. I think he's got over like 4 million followers.
4.96 million.
Yeah, so almost 5 million followers. At the time, I had never heard of him, and he wasn't as well known. Again, this is going back to like 2017 area. But he's a big real estate investor in California, and yeah, so he's got a huge following. There was a guy, Josue Pena. He was huge with Instagram and building Instagram pages for people. And I mean, he could literally, for his fee or service, but I mean, he was building Instagram pages of over 1 million followers in a very short period of time.
You remember the kid in Vegas when we were at the Vegas meetup?
Yeah, so we were in
crazy.
Vegas, downtown, Old Town Vegas on Fremont, and there was this kid that was just an amazing freestyle rapper. You could walk up to him and he would just start rapping about what you're wearing, how you're looking, but he could just flow naturally. And we crowded around him, and with just him being in the presence of some of these marketers, it was life-changing for him. He literally got the information of Josue and even Kevin David, and within just a few days, they blew him up. And
I think he had over 100,000 followers. It was insane.
Like within 24 to 48 hours, they were able to get him these followers. So that was a big deal for him. I wish we remembered his name so we could refer you to them. Going back to, it was good to be around people that were doing something other than the 9 to 5. It gave us motivation to start something and to try something so we could get back our time. So our biggest thing is time freedom. Obviously, everybody needs to make money, which, with the private label and reselling has allowed us to basically work for ourselves at this point and spend a lot more time together with our dogs, not having, to take 15-minute breaks and lunch breaks and things that a lot of people, as you get older, realize like if you're a good employee, you're a good employee, and businesses should respect you in that sense. I know a lot of businesses now give unlimited leave, so there's really no set vacation time. They just say, don't abuse it, obviously. But again, if you're a good employee, you're going to respect the business that you work for and give them your time and energy. But either way, I guess another person we got to meet was Casey Goss. He was the creator of Viral Launch, which he has since sold that company on to other ventures. I don't really know what he's been up to.
I don't know. He went to some acquisition company that was acquiring Amazon private label businesses and things like that. But when we were at that San Diego meetup, and Casey's, he's mentioning all these people to you guys, they did a roundtable where we actually got to sit down and speak to them. And that was when we got to speak to Graham Stephan, and he talked to us about real estate, and that really inspired us. And now we have a rental property. Yep. And then Jose Sueño, like Casey said, with the Instagram. And then also there was somebody there talking about affiliate marketing and how he does that. David Arnett, he was there talking about Facebook ads at the time. That was right when Facebook ads started exploding. But Kevin David worked at Facebook, so all that stuff totally made sense to him on how you use Facebook ads to market people. But it was just so inspiring. I think that's what we're getting at with why we want to bring on guests to the podcast for you guys to listen to, because all of those people that we met have influenced where we are right now.
Yeah. For example, affiliate marketing, I had no idea what that even meant. And then after talking to the person that was the expert, I believe his name was Odie, it just, another, again, light bulb went off in my head of like, wow, you can actually make money just referring people to services or products. And I mean, there's affiliate marketers out there that are doing huge numbers, and really all they're doing is giving people information to go try out a service and or a product, and if somebody buys that, they get a percentage of it. So it's almost like a commission sale. Some of those are even residual. So once you refer someone to a software product, for example,
List Perfectly.
Yeah, we're pretty big affiliate marketers for List Perfectly.
They prefer to say it's a referral, which it's true, because we don't like to affiliate anything that we don't personally use. Right. And we use List Perfectly. That's something that we couldn't run our reselling business without. And then if you sign up and you use it, then we get a little bit just for referring. So it's kind of like affiliate marketers, some people are like, oh, they're so scammy, sleazy. But I look at it as like you're kind of selling something for that company or software. Yeah,
going back to, we use the product. It was actually a couple of women in the Scottsdale area that developed it, which I didn't even know that until we met them at the eBay meetup. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
It was the eBay Open 2023.
Yeah, so a couple years ago now, about a year and a half, whatever it was, I realized like, oh, these guys are actually local. But it's a great software. To be able to cross-list your eBay items or Mercari or Poshmark and put those on other platforms with almost a click of a button. You have to put in some information, but it's such a time saver. And also, it's getting your product on multiple platforms. So for us, it's like, well, this is a great product. We use it, so of course we're going to tell other people about it. And if you guys happen to sign up for it, great. And they just pay us a bit of a commission as a thank you, basically, for referring people to their service. So that's just one example. There's people have dedicated pages just for Amazon affiliate marketing, to where if you buy a product, they might do a YouTube video, for example, reviewing a product, whatever it may be. And if it makes sense to the person, like, oh, well, I want to buy that, and you click on their link, Amazon sends you a referral payment. So that's, one topic that we do know, but we're not, super knowledgeable in it. I wouldn't call us an expert by any means. There's several people that's what they do full time. And for us, it's just, part of our business in general. Right now, we have our private label product that we send into Amazon. We still go thrifting just because we enjoy it, and yard sailing and sell products on eBay. You can see behind us, for those on YouTube, a bunch of golf clubs.
And that's not all. And if you guys are loyal listeners, you know that Casey bought like 6,000 golf clubs, which we already got our money back and some. I think we did about 11,000 on eBay alone. We sold over 11,000, and then plus a lot of local sales. But we're also doing Whatnot, which has been a lot of fun. We haven't done a lot of shows, but we have done a few, and I feel like we're doing pretty good with that.
Yep, and then we just recently joined our friend Ryan in buying out storage units, which we've only done 2 so far. Both have been fun to go through.
Which we'll share I want to do an episode on storage units. Have Ryan here.
Yeah.
He's local. He's actually going to come here in a couple minutes, and we're going to go through all of the stuff that's on our driveway because we emptied out a storage unit the other day. But yeah, we just want to really share with you guys some of the things that are working for us, have people on to inspire you, encourage you to keep working towards that Daycheck. Mm-hmm. And, the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast is something that, we want to help people in the end. Like we saw what worked for us when we were talking to people when we first started Amazon, and Casey was working that catastrophe job. We were in our late 20s or early 30s. Early 30s, and he's already almost or over 15 years into his career. And everyone was like, oh, you can't leave your career to sell on Amazon. What's Amazon? That's not going to work. Our families thought we were absolutely crazy. And now they're like, it works. Like, I think a lot of you probably feel the same. Like, you might not want to leave your 9 to 5 or leave your full-time career, but also you see the opportunity to make money.
Especially with the books where you scan them and just ship them right into Amazon. We all of a sudden we're starting to make, an extra $1,500 to $2,000 a month. And then that grew to several thousand a month, where we really took a step back and said, as much as the career was good to me, I just, again, was getting burnt out and knew it wasn't something that I wanted to do for 25 plus years. And then that led us, again, to the private labeling, where, I don't encourage anybody to leave their job until you have the process and everything kind of figured out and things are running to where, with our private label, for example, we'll get a 52-foot trailer that drops off 14 or 15 pallets. We have a storage unit on our property here, so we can store the items cheaply. We're not into a commercial warehouse contract or any of that, which has been nice. But then we just had 3 pallets picked up yesterday. So really our business with Amazon now is just managing product flow. So it takes a while to get to that point. A lot of people think, buy the product, send it in Amazon, you get paid, and, it's easy. But the reality is there's a lot of moving parts there. You got to make sure that you have quite a bit of inventory in backstock, because you might have a good month and all of a sudden your product is running low, and to get that product remade could take 2 to 3 months, and then shipping can take 2 months. So you got to kind of be 6 months ahead of the game before you can really consider leaving your job or career to do this full time, in my opinion. So, but again, we'll talk about that more in another episode. Really, our goals with this podcast is to continue the community that Ashley and Liz built in the past. There's been great followers that missed hearing them. And so again, we hope to just continue to build the community and help answer questions and give people inspiration and the courage really to pursue something else full-time other than a 9 to 5, if that's something you're interested. If you're listening to this, typically you are in a position where you're wanting to do reselling full-time and or starting your own business. And that's why Liz took reselling out of the title, because we do want to talk to more entrepreneurs, not just resellers or eBayers or Amazon, but, somebody that has a auto detailing business or a window cleaning business, or really any service business, to where, you're building your own clients, where your work ethic gets rewarded by, what you do on a daily basis, and not just dictated by a 2-week paycheck that, again, you could go out and be amazing for the company you're working for and still be compensated just an hourly rate, where
or they give you a very minimal raise, where if you start something else on the side, then it's almost like you're giving yourself the raise that your company's not going to give you.
Yeah, that was the other, which I didn't talk about before, but as good of the company was to me, every year was basically a guaranteed 3% raise. If you weren't performing well, you would get 2%, or if you were like a top performer, you might get 4%, but the middle of the road was like 3% year after year after year. Now, there were years I got 4% because, I was working hard and doing a good job, but I still didn't feel like it was very fair that I might be out there performing at a high level and only getting 1% more of a raise than somebody that may not be performing at a high level and just kind of coasting through their job. So it was, kind of demotivating to me, which was, my coworkers were kind of going through that same thought process or feeling, where it's like, as much as we go out and bust ass for the company in a sense, it's like, we're only getting 1% more, or sometimes, the company would just say 3% is all we can do this year. We don't have a budget to do any more than that. So yeah, it was just demotivating me to know that, as year after year, I'm only going to get 3% more, despite going into catastrophe adjusting, for example. I got overtime, but I was working 12-hour days, 21 days in a row. It was just, I don't know, it just didn't make sense to me to continue that lifestyle, because, I want to not work to live, not live to work, basically. Which reselling, don't get me wrong, is not easy. A lot of people do have that assumption too. I follow a lot of groups online, as I'm sure a lot of you listeners do, and you'll see a lot of people get frustrated with it and go back to a 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But we want to give people the courage or inspiration to at least give it a try if that's something you're thinking about, or just starting a business. Again, there's tons of businesses that you can start, and that usually the more you work, the harder you work, the more you're going to get compensated for. So, but yeah, any other goals that you have for the podcast coming up?
I think we covered pretty much everything. Now you guys know who my new co-host is. It's my husband, Casey. And then, like we said, we're going to be doing episodes every other week, and then try to get as many guests as we can on, because they're just so inspiring, and really just to hear their story, where they started, and kind of share ours a little bit more. Because, I mean, we are in our early 40s, and we look back and we really wish we would have started certain things sooner. So hopefully we'll be that inspiration for you guys listening.
Well, thanks for listening to us today. And again, I'm looking forward to communicating with a lot of you, through our Facebook group.
We're the Daycheckers. Yeah, it's a Daycheckers Facebook group. We hope you guys are happy with everything that we are going to be implementing with the podcast, and a few of the changes, a little of the tweaks. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, let us know what you think. If you guys aren't already in our Daycheckers Facebook group, I'll leave it in the show notes and the description down below. And I guess we'll just see you guys on the next episode.